Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the complete story and ending of one of the absolute most mind-bending psychological thrillers ever put on screen, the 2010 masterpiece Shutter Island. Now, just imagine arriving on a remote, incredibly mysterious island. Your job as a U.S. Marshal is to investigate a highly dangerous criminal who has somehow completely vanished from a locked, high-security facility. Honestly, it's the perfect setup for a gripping mystery, right? But as we're going to see, this story goes so much deeper than a simple missing person case. Okay, let's dive into this. What if the biggest mystery on the island isn't the missing person at all, but your very own identity? This is the central, deeply unsettling premise that anchors the entire narrative of Shutter Island. We're going to break down all the hidden clues, that shocking plot twist, and of course, that unforgettable ending that completely rewrites the meaning of the entire story. So to really understand this puzzle, we have to start right at the beginning. The story kicks off in 1954. U.S. Marshal Teddy Daniels and his brand new partner Chuck All travel by boat to Shutter Island. Their destination is Ashecliffe Hospital. It's this incredibly imposing, high-security, heavily guarded facility designed specifically for mentally disturbed criminals. They've been sent there to investigate the truly impossible escape of a patient named Rachel Solando. She was locked inside a secured room, yet she vanished into thin air without leaving a single trace of evidence. Almost from the very second he arrives, Teddy just feels that something is terribly, terribly wrong. His paranoia begins to escalate rapidly. The doctors seem to be actively hiding critical information, and the staff members, well, they're completely evasive and just refuse to give him any straight answers. The whole island feels like this carefully controlled secret, which leads Teddy to suspect that illegal, horrific experiments are being performed on the patients. But, it's not just the external investigation that's troubling him. It's his internal state, too. Throughout all of this, Teddy is plagued by these deeply disturbing memories and nightmares of his past, specifically of his wife, Dolores, who died in a tragic fire. And that fire was caused by an arsonist named Andrew Laeddis. Teddy basically becomes convinced that finding Laeddis is secretly connected to the entire mystery of Shutter Island. And then, smack in the middle of his search, Teddy finds this strange, totally cryptic clue. It's a mysterious note that just reads, "The Law of Four. Who is 67?" So the crucial point here is that Teddy absolutely believes this note is the definitive proof he needs. He thinks it proves there is a massive hidden conspiracy inside those hospital walls, and he's convinced this specific clue holds the key to blowing the lid off the entire operation. It's actually a brilliant piece of dramatic irony because, as we'll soon see, this note means so much more than just a missing patient. Right as the investigation is reaching a boiling point, nature steps in. A massively powerful storm hits Shutter Island. It acts as this impenetrable force that completely severs the island from the outside world. With literally no way to leave, Teddy is trapped and forced even deeper into the mystery. Reality really begins to blur at this point. The people around him start questioning his behavior, and even his partner, Chuck, begins acting noticeably different. Teddy slowly starts to realize that something about his own memories might be completely fabricated. The investigation soon points Teddy directly toward the lighthouse, which is sitting ominously out on the very edge of the island. Let's move to the outer limits of the island and see how this builds. Teddy firmly believes this lighthouse is ground zero for the hospital's darkest secrets, literally the exact spot where the doctors are hiding their illegal experiments. He pushes forward fully, completely expecting to bust open a secret laboratory and finally get the answers he's been so desperately seeking. Now, what's really interesting about this massive paradigm shift is what happens next. Because when Teddy finally reaches that lighthouse, there is no secret laboratory. Nothing. Instead, he discovers a completely earth-shattering truth. The heroic U.S. Marshal Teddy Daniels is actually Andrew Laeddis. He is patient 67. Teddy is the very patient he has been hunting for this entire time. How is that even possible, right? Well, it turns out the entire investigation was a carefully orchestrated, highly controlled psychological experiment. It was this radical experimental treatment created by Dr. Colley, known as role-playing therapy. The doctors and staff literally allowed Andrew to live out his elaborate delusion of being Teddy Daniels' U.S. Marshal. They played along with his whole fantasy in a desperate final last-ditch attempt to help him break through his intense denial and finally accept reality. And man, that reality is incredibly dark. Andrew's wife, Dolores, suffered from severe, untreated mental illness, which ultimately led to a horrific tragedy. She drowned their 3 young children. Completely unable to handle the agonizing grief, Andrew shot and killed Dolores. The trauma and the guilt were just so overwhelmingly painful that Andrew's mind completely fractured. He quite literally couldn't live with the reality of what he had done, so his brain stepped in and created a brand new identity. He became Teddy Daniels, the heroic investigator, simply because facing the truth of being Andrew Laeddis was way too painful to bear. And this brilliantly illustrates the hidden depth of the entire story. The physical locations aren't just cool set pieces, they're actually direct maps to Andrew's internal defense mechanisms. The island itself perfectly represents his isolated, trapped mind. The violent, chaotic storm represents his turbulent emotional struggle. And the lighthouse, that represents the painful, unavoidable truth he has been avoiding this entire time. This right here is exactly why Shutter Island is far, far more than just a surface-level mystery. The core themes are deeply, profoundly rooted in trauma, guilt, memory, and the incredible and, honestly, sometimes terrifying ability of the human mind to protect itself. This is exactly why a second viewing of the story changes absolutely everything. Once you actually know the truth, you realize that every seemingly normal scene, every little conversation, actually contains these brilliant hidden clues about the massive internal battle Andrew is fighting. Which brings us to the climax of the entire experiment and the final evaluation. After learning the devastating truth inside the lighthouse, Andrew seems to finally understand who he really is. For this fleeting, hopeful moment, it looks like the role-playing therapy actually worked. He remembers his real name, he acknowledges his incredibly tragic past, and he seems to have fully recovered his memory. But then, during a final, quiet conversation with his doctor, Dr. Sheehan, the ending introduces a devastatingly ambiguous twist. Did Andrew truly recover, or did he regress right back into his delusions? That entire ambiguity hinges heavily on this one iconic quote. Andrew looks calmly at Dr. Sheehan and asks, "Which would be worse, to live as a monster or to die as a good man?" The tragic implication here is just immense. This line heavily suggests that Andrew's mind hasn't regressed at all. He actually knows exactly who he is and he knows the horrible truth, but he is actively, consciously choosing a grim fate because he would rather die as the good man Teddy Daniels than continue to live with the unbearable pain and monster-like guilt of being Andrew Laeddis. Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative thought to mull over. Did Andrew truly return to reality, only to realize the reality was just way too painful to endure? Or did his mind simply choose to forget everything once again as a final act of self-preservation? It is the ultimate tragedy of Andrew's choice, and it completely transforms Shutter Island from a simple thriller into a profound, heartbreaking exploration of a man fighting a losing battle against his own mind. It's the kind of mystery that lingers long, long after the story ends, challenging all of us to consider the incredibly heavy price of truth. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this breakdown gave you a whole new perspective